When you're playing people who are still very much in the public consciousness but aren't here, does that make it different to maybe the job that Matt and Claire had for people who are still alive?
I don't know. I'm not sure it makes much difference because you don't have a relationship with them anyway, in a way. You know, there's a lot of distance. It's not like you're talking to them and you've got roll of eyes coming down telling you what they were like. You try and find bits of information, first-hand accounts from people. But also I think because the first season is in the 50s, you know, it's not in my living memory that time. And so it was a sort of thing that we all had to go into together and try and imagine what these people, how they lived and the circumstances of their life in this sort of extraordinary circumstances. So I don't know. I don't think it made... Did you feel it was different?
No, that didn't pop into my mind. I mean, I think that when I read the script, I saw that it was it wasn't exploitative, you know, and so in that sense, and I could believe in what it was that this series was after. And I always give myself, because I've played real people many times, I always give myself the out that is, I'm not playing that person, I'm playing the writer's version of that person. So, I mean, I blame the writer. If
I think you have
anyone's
the same
upset,
pressures.
I just point them towards Peter Morgan.
Over there. Good sound, no. But, yeah, I think the pressures are the same, really. We're still playing someone real, but you're you. So it's a weird.
And also the version. What struck me about this when we started to do all the research was my impression of Philip was so much coloured by the recent knowledge of him, and you know the sort of spitting image thing with the caricature, and he's been so maligned in that sense, because when you see what he looks, who he was from before, what he looked like before, he was he was a film star. You know, I had no idea. So in that sense, we're all fairly removed from what the modern conception of them is. Yeah. It felt like a big movie. It felt like a movie, you know, in terms of its ambition and its scale. The BBC would have a hard time competing on that level with Netflix. But the BBC has always invested in its writers, and it has always been supportive of its talent. So if it's able to do something on this scale, fine. But if it isn't, but they still have a fantastic tradition of innovative dramas. I don't think they should worry about whether they compete budget-wise with it.
It didn't feel like it was, even though it was a very British story, it didn't feel like a exclusively British thing. Do you know what I mean? It seemed like it was really universal in it. You know, for me, just objectively watching it, it's like I'm watching a man deal with terminal illness, or a young girl deal with the most difficult job I can think of in the world, where you have no choice, or a young woman, Margaret, trying to fight to marry somebody she loves. And so the themes, you know, I don't think it becomes sort of, I haven't compared it to any other period dramas myself.
I suppose also with the Queen's had a very televised reign, but King George didn't. And I was wondering if maybe this had been 5 years ago, we might not have known anything about him. But because of the King's speech, he's probably a little more known more is known about his history than would have been. Was that any kind of help to you? Was that of any interest to you at all?
Yes, of course it was. I was aware, and I had seen that movie, and Colin's performance was absolutely wonderful. That story was about a different issue, if you like, and our knowledge of that person. What I was just amazed at when I started to look and see is how many different versions of that there've been. It's actually been lots of. He's appeared in. He was in the film about the meeting on the Hudson with Roosevelt.
High Park on Hudson.
Yeah, that one. I mean, there's actually been many versions lately. Rupert Everett did it recently. So you know, he's been out there, and it had that treatment. So for me, I took comfort from the fact that Colin looked nothing like him, and neither do I. So. It didn't bother anybody back then. So.
But also, it wasn't really focusing on just his stammer and that. It was actually on the last 2 years of his life, and he's becoming ill, and the family man thing, I think. And you so miss his presence through the rest of it, don't you?